So it's about time to bring up the man of the hour. So Rob called me up, and he's like, I'm doing this book release at Pegasus, and I want you to be the MC. And I listen to a lot of rap music, and I was like, but Rob, you've heard my poetry. Like, I don't fucking rhyme. I don't know how to do it. And he was like, no, fool, I want you to read the bios and shit. And that made a lot more sense. So here I am. Anyway, I want you to welcome back up to the stage the All Due Respect publisher, Mr. Mike Monson, to introduce Rob Pierce.
Okay, this is great. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad that this is what's happening, that I'm the publisher, one of the co-publishers of All Due Respect books, and we're publishing Rob's book. Because I love Rob and I love the book. Just real briefly, hopefully. Summer of 2013, I started working for All Due Respect, the web zine. Twice a month they put out a story. As soon as I started working there, we decided to put out an ebook / print book 4 times a year. And so I became basically the culler of the submissions. I read every submission and only rejected most of them, and only the ones that I thought that I loved and I thought Chris would love went on to Chris, my partner, Chris Radigan. And so I read hundreds and hundreds of stories over about a year. And it was we had a very simple aesthetic. It had to be crime fiction from the point of view of the criminal. It had to be that. And it had to be a story. It had to actually be a story with a beginning, middle, and a really good ending. So lots of stories just didn't make it for one reason or another. And one of the stories, one of the writers that I really liked, I knew Rob already from meeting him here, and I got to know him over time. I knew he was a good writer because he would send these stories in that I had to reject, either because they weren't from the point of view of a criminal, or the ending didn't quite work, or something. But the writing was always really good, and I always assumed that the stories would get taken somewhere else because they were so good. They just weren't right for us. But it was getting kind of annoying because I had to keep rejecting it. And so then, last summer, we decided to publish books. So Rob sends me this 70,000 word book that I was like, oh, do I have to reject him again? How am I going to think of a way to do this? It was very disappointing. So then I started reading the book, and I think I started it about, noon on a Saturday. I don't know for sure. And I read for about 6 hours, and I got up early the next morning, and I didn't stop doing it. All I did was sleep or read, because I couldn't stop reading it. It was crime fiction from the point of view of a criminal. It was episodic, so the story part wasn't exactly what my aesthetic was, but it didn't matter because the voice was so interesting, and it was so, it was just so good. I mean, I love it, the book, and I really can't believe I got a chance to publish something like that. Because, I mean, I think you're all going to read it, right? You're here because you wanted to buy the book and go home and read it. You're not here just for the chairs and the beer. Okay, so it's just the idea that you're all going to read this book and you're going to know what I know, just how artistic and wonderful it is. It's just I'm just glad I'm here. I'm glad I got to do this. So also, Rob Pierce has been nominated for a Derringer Award for short crime fiction. Has had his stories published in Flash Fiction Offensive, Pulp Modern, Plots with Guns, Revolt Daily, Near the Knuckle, and Shotgun Hunting. The editor of Swill Magazine, he lives in Oakland, California with his wife and 2 children. He is equally comfortable taking romantic walks on the beach or dumping the body elsewhere. So here's Rob, and
it's all true except for the part where Joel said I'm nice. Well, first, I want to get the thank yous out of the way, but that might take too long, but I'm going to throw in a few of them anyway. I want to thank everyone who showed up tonight. I want to thank Pegasus. I want to thank the other readers. I can't think of your names right now, but you were pretty good. I really want to thank Chris and Mike at All Due Respect for publishing the book. It's my first novel to be published. It's better than the ones that haven't been published, so it's probably right. And most of all, I want to thank my family's here tonight. My wife Susan And my sons, Nathan and Julian, they've put up with me throughout my years of self-imposed isolation that adds nothing to the bank account. I'm referring to the writing, not my other habits that are self-imposed isolation that add nothing to the bank account. As to the book itself, Uncle Dust is a book about a guy who's totally fucked up. He likes to rob banks solo. It's a rush. He's outside society. He meets a woman, Teresa, falls for her, clicks with her young son, Jeremy, who calls him Uncle Dust. And bank robbing is not exactly a steady job, which gets pointed out to Dust by his old crime buddy, Rico. So after a while, Dust takes on some outside work collecting gambling debts for the gangster Rico works for. Until that isn't enough anymore, and then everything really goes to hell. And tonight I'll be reading 3 brief scenes from the novel. This scene, hold the beer, is early in the book between Dust, his girlfriend Teresa, and her son Jeremy. The little runt ran around like there was a motor in him. His black hair was too short to flap. It tried anyway, more like a wisp. He had a toy car in one hand, a plane in the other, and something else in his brain. How old do you say that boy is? 10. 10. I looked at him close as I could, but he moved one side of the room to the other and nothing flat. He like anything besides cars and planes? Teresa laughed. He's too young for that. She sat near me on the couch, but I didn't let her get too close. It was too long between jobs. Jeremy ran out of the room. Teresa whispered, I worry. Cars and trucks and whatever else is in that game. I don't think school helps. She had a drink. I couldn't. I had to plan. School's like that. He's in 4th grade. He's behind. Maybe you don't give a fuck. Who would? The boy ran across the room and stopped right in front of us. Want to see my trick? I smiled. Teresa didn't. I didn't look at her. I just knew. Yeah, kid, let's see it. Jeremy raised the tiny car as high as he could in one hand and the little plane in the other. He brought his hands together fast, let go of the toys at the last second. The plane went at an angle and one wing clipped the front of the car. Both toys dropped. Jeremy looked straight up, couldn't turn away. The car hit him in one eye and the plane in the other. He howled like they were razors. I laughed, threw my head back, saw Teresa out the corner of one eye. What the fuck, she shouted and reached out to the boy. I kept laughing. Jeremy ducked his mom's arms and stepped closer to me. He stopped crying. It worked in my bedroom. I still laughed, but it tailed off. It sure as fuck didn't work here. Jeremy grinned at me. It sure, he looked at his mom, didn't. What was it supposed to do? They hit each other hard, and the plane goes back one way, and the car goes back the other. That would have been cool to see. It was, but it's not a good trick to practice inside. One good miss could bust a window. You got a pretty strong arm. 2, Jeremy nodded. The other thing, though, it's not a good trick to practice outside. You miss, you know. People don't like it when you hit them with a car. So where do I practice? I don't know. Maybe you should practice something else, something people expect you to throw at a park. You got a ball and a glove? Jeremy shook his head. I glared at Teresa. No. No. You got a boy throwing cars and planes in the house and he doesn't have a fucking ball and glove? She shook her head. Jesus, how can I plan anything under these conditions? I got up off the couch. Come on, kid. We're going to buy some shit and go to the park. In this next scene, off to the crime land, Dust goes back to Teresa's place after a day of doing recon for his next bank robbery. As part of that recon, he's visited his old friend Valerie, whose house is near the bank he wants to rob, and would be a good place to hide for a while. I walked into the apartment and Teresa knelt next to the door, wrapping up the vacuum cleaner cord. You hungry? She straightened up and kissed me. How come you work all day and you come home tasting like scotch? I got a good job. I smiled, but she looked serious. You know, there's a lot of stress in what I do. Sometimes I gotta wind down. Yeah, well, sometimes you wind down too much. I nodded. I gotta work again tomorrow, more research for the next job. Plus, I got a yard job to do. What, like weeding? Don't give me that gangster slang. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're way on edge. Here, I reached inside my coat and held out my half-empty bottle. She waved it away. I unscrewed the cap and took a drink, moved on to the couch. No slang on the yard job. Friend of mine has physical problems. I said I'd do the yard. Teresa walked away from the vacuum, looked down at me on the couch. The yard? That the same as her yard? I stood up. You should have a drink. It ain't like that. You spend one night, God knows where, you take a day off drinking, and I don't know with who, and now you're going to do some woman's yard. Fuck you, Dust. You want to meet Valerie? You think I'm fucking Val? You should see Valerie. You should see you. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed 2 tall glasses, and split the rest of the scotch into them. Sit down. I put an arm around Teresa. She shrugged, and I dropped my arm, but she took the glass I handed her. We sat down, not exactly together, but next to each other. What I see is you, she said. You make it hard to see us. You mean us as a family, right? I never had much luck with family, not the one I was born into. I don't think that one counts. One abusive dad and me, everyone else ran like hell. Abandoned. That's a thing parents do to their kids. You know that's not what I mean. It doesn't matter what you mean. That's what my family was. I wanted something better, but that was what I got. So my friends growing up, I always liked them better than my dad, but I couldn't make them mean more. He was always there. I could never get away. Even when I got older and moved out, he always stuck with me. That's family, the shit that never goes away. Teresa looked sympathetic, but only for a second. What about Valerie? When I was a kid, she lived down the block. She was always okay for a girl. Then we got older and she got too big to be popular. I wasn't popular for other reasons. We hung out. She was my first girlfriend that mattered. That didn't last. We were fucking teenagers, for Christ's sakes, but her next boyfriend was this prick Lucas I used to run with. So I'd still see her a lot at parties and shit. She was like family, if I could choose family. Lucas too, except he was like a cousin you'd hang out with when he was around, not miss when he wasn't. Me and Val always had something, from when no one else liked either of us. Teresa didn't look like she was on my side yet. I took a long drink, set my glass down. So today you happened to run into her, and she's single, I suppose. Like no one should be. Meaning what? Meaning I'd said as much as I wanted about Val, and I hated that I was about to say more. She's my friend, and the husband who left her was also my friend. I never met her kids. Her husband took them? I lowered my head, shook it, raised it again. There'd be hope that way. My mouth was dry, so I took a drink, but I felt empty. I took another drink, but I knew it wouldn't fill me. She should have known better, but she asked. There's no hope? She's home alone one night with her kids. There's a break-in. The guy kills the boys and he rapes her, beats her up and leaves her with her dead babies while he robs the place. Oh, Jesus. She still lives there. I do what I can. Later in the novel, Dust robs a bank and hides out at Valerie's. He's been shot in the arm and spends half what he stole getting his arm stitched up. By this point, he believes that Teresa's ex-boyfriend may be a pedophile and after her son Jeremy. Val has nothing to do with that. She has her own problems with children. Val coughed a while, put down the mineral water she'd been sucking back. Shit, it was hard hanging out with someone who didn't want to be reminded of reality. Her reality. One horrible night she couldn't get past. I lowered my glass. You know, when we were kids, I let it tail off. I was trying to change the subject, but it had started in her head. I saw her eyes rolling. I grabbed her by the shoulders. My shot arm hurt like hell, and I dropped it. This ain't about you. That boy, Jeremy, I gotta take care of him. There was no one there for me when I was a boy. Boys, Val murmured, and I didn't have a chance. She folded forward, and I hoped she'd throw up. She dipped her head toward her chest. Boys, she whispered, and tears fell. She wrapped her arms around her knees and lurched forward. I wanted to tell her to let it go. I knew it was the dumbest thing I could say. My old man, I said, he wanted to kill me every time he beat me. And I didn't know what else to say about that. Val sat hunched forward, shuddering, crying. She made a noise, but it was only snot running, then tears and a soft rasp from her open mouth. I put a hand on her head. She jerked, and I pulled back. She leaned forward again, quieter now. Abram and Jesse, she said softly. I know. But that... She couldn't go on, and she probably should have, but I didn't want to hear it. Her boys or the unfairness of it, I knew those things. I guess she could never be done with those things. If it was me, I thought the horror would fade, but it wasn't my horror. I didn't know shit. I wanted her to be past that for her own sake. Plus now, I couldn't tell her the worst things about my life because they were less than hers. She hadn't done anything wrong, and her husband left her. Not that he would have been any help the night of the break-in, but something would have been different. Maybe her boys would have lived. Instead, she watched them die. There wasn't a damned thing she could do. I didn't do anything either, I said. It wasn't my fault, like it wasn't... I wanted to talk about my innocence, my dad, but she cried, and I shut up. Everything was too late. And Jeremy didn't do anything, I mumbled. I have to do something. Val looked up. What? To who? She knew what I meant without an explanation, without even listening. There's a guy. I shook my head. You know, some guys are just wrong. I'd see it in my dad's eyes, then he'd turn his head and hit me. Again, like he had to take me by surprise. You, she cried, you never loved. Tears came down some more. I wanted to. I didn't know what else to say. I looked down at my drink, then it was out of my hands, the glass in both of hers, and Val pulled it back and took a solid shot. She coughed, and she spat out a little, but mostly she swallowed it. She never drank. I can't do shit, I said, and took my glass back, about what happened to you. I did what I could. And I wish I could stop with hating my dad. That don't work either. It's more complicated. Fuck. Val nodded like I'd clarified something. I knew she hated and she'd been raped, and neither of those was the worst thing that happened to her. She lost her boys. Me and Dad was a different thing. He beat the shit out of me, tried to scare me into staying. I was all he had left. When Val was my girlfriend, she was my family. I never wanted to go home. She always needed something from me, not only protection, but I knew how to give that too. She was a little heavy in high school, and some kids said shit to her about it, but not while she was going with me. Now, she was really large, and we sat next to each other on the couch, but I didn't give a shit she was fat. I put my good arm around her. Maybe if we were together, I'd care how fat she was. I didn't know. She was my friend, and she needed an arm. I knew that much. Thank you. I don't know where we go from here. Buy books. I love Pegasus. Hope you brought lots of money. There's a lot of books on that table. Buy them all. On these shelves, buy them all too. Pegasus is great. Support them. Thanks.